Welcome back to BrandsTalk, a show to help you develop and grow your brand in a more authentic and sustainable way, locally and globally, whether it's your personal brand or company brand or product or service level brand. Learn from thought leaders from different parts of the world, from CEOs, business owners, managers, and experts who are in the spotlight to tell their brand stories and share their first-hand insights. My name is Brigitte Bojkowszky. I'm the founder and owner of BridgetBrands, a branding strategy boutique offering online courses, workshops, and one-on-one exclusive coaching. I help my clients craft meaningful branding strategies so that they can unleash their full potential to effectively elevate their personal and organizational brands and shine. So let's get started and dive with me into the world of brands. My guest today is AdaPia D'Errico. She is a visionary entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. She has co-founded businesses, launched brands, and defined industries from art to media to fintech and real estate. AdaPia is an international author, powerful keynote speaker, and sought-after voice in crowdfunding, capital raising, and enlightened leadership. AdaPia is a principal at Alpha Investing, a boutique real estate private equity firm, and the co-founder of Women of Wealth, an organization dedicated to empowering women to take wealth creation firmly into their own hands. I warmly welcome AdaPia D'Errico. Welcome to BrandsTalk.
Hi, Bridget. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you on my show, AdaPia. We have connected already, I think a year ago, through the Leadership Global Network. That's a community
Mhm.
of like-minded women who support and lift each other and where they can bring out the absolute best in each other. So I'm very happy we connected and we got to know each other a little bit better. So, would you like to share your personal journey that our audience gets to know you a little bit better? So, and tell us about that brought you right there where you are now. So, a little bit about your background, that would be wonderful.
Sure, of course. Well, I guess like the best way to tell my story is that I got started very young working. I was also, I would say, pushed that way from my parents. You know, my parents are Italian, and as you know, like there's a lot of pressure that comes from our parents if we're inclined to follow it. And I knew that for me, like working and being successful was really important, and a lot of that had to do with my parents and in essence in expectations. So we all have all of these expectations, and I got started really young. I started working in a bank when I was 18, and so I really understood the value at a young age of financial freedom. Although it would take me another over 20 years to really recognize that I knew that and that there was something else. There was something else behind it, because initially it was all about, I'm going to be successful. I need to make a lot of money. That makes me successful. My parents will be proud of me. All of the things, the title and all of that. And I had a varied career. I mean, I started in the bank. I ended up moving to Europe for 11 years. It was a little more challenging to follow a career path when you change countries. And it did, like, very much, especially because I moved to Italy and that's where I lived for 9 years. And women don't have careers in Italy. So I went from North America, where it's very normal to have a career as a woman, to Italy, where it was so hard for me to even find a job. I had 2 degrees and work experience, and I'm 24 and can't find a job because I don't exist as like a case study. You know what I mean? Like they're like, you can be a secretary. And I was like, excuse me? Like, that's not happening. So I had and even though I am Italian and my parents are Italian and that's my first language, I had a really hard time adjusting to that, and eventually I ended up finding work in Switzerland because I lived in northern Italy, so that made more sense to me, and I was able, those people understood a little bit better, and so I ended up working in a hedge fund there. And that was a crazy experience because I was there when Lehman Brothers went down in 2008. So I experienced, I mean, the crash from a different place from Europe, but however, I mean, the funds were investing in, we had American clients as well. And obviously what happened to Lehman, what happened to Wall Street happened across all markets globally. So we were definitely impacted. And shortly after that crisis was over, and I mean, the fund was fine, and they did very well after. They were wonderful people. I ended up going into business with my sister. I did like a whole 180. I mean, I went through a massive life change there, personal and career. By leaving that, I followed my entrepreneurial spirit, and I went into business with my sister, who's an artist. So I'm coming off of a financial, markets background, investor relations. And, I can't really tell you what it was other than a really strong feeling of like, I really want to do this. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. But I found out, didn't know anything about art. I didn't even know what a JPEG was. I had no idea. I had nothing. But she was being approached because she's a fantastic artist. Her name is Camila D'Errico. And she was being approached to use her art on merchandise. So that's the licensing industry. And she had already, some publishing company had tried to not pay her for her work, which happens a lot
Oh,
to
yeah.
artists. And so what started off as like, well, let me, I'll look at your contracts, let me help you a little bit with your accounting. I started to see this bigger picture of she could really build a profitable business by developing her art and really like her brand, because her art is her brand. But back then, so this is like 2008, 2009, artists didn't really, it's almost like they weren't allowed to make money, like unless you were represented by this big gallery, and like they'd take 50 to 60%. And so one of the best things I think is when you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know anything. So I went to a trade show, a licensing trade show, no idea. And it was this wild world. Wild world. I was like, what is this place? Like there, Disney, and like there's like all these brands, like consumer brands. And this is, and this is the thing again, like, and I started meeting people, I started networking, I showed everybody her art. And somehow through that, I learned and was able to build a business for her with her art. And so I did that for several years, and man, was that fun. I mean, we would just fly all over the world. I mean, we started a business during the Great Recession, which people would say you're crazy. People told us you can't put her art on mugs, because simultaneous to the art licensing, um, which made sense to me because you get paid.
Mhm.
Like the company pays you to use your artwork, or, and I was like, oh, that's marketing that pays us.
Mhm.
I'm all in. I love that. Like that makes financial sense to me. And then we started making our own merchandise. So she's a painter and she was being shown in galleries. So we were doing gallery shows. I was coordinating with galleries, etc. And so I did that for a lot of years, went to all the Comic Cons. So the, infamous San Diego Comic Con, like, booth there, like so much work all over the world, a lot of fun. So I learned that I love being an entrepreneur. I learned about brands just by force of having to create one. This was at the beginning of social media.
Mhm.
So we started social media channels, like all of it. It was grassroots to the hilt. And around, I would say, so I left Europe and I moved back to North America in 2011, moved to LA. And, I was at that point, we were working with Disney. We were doing some other projects, and I was consulting for other artists and other brands. And this whole idea of fan building, which, today is like a whole industry, but that was back when it was like a new idea. And that's where I really learned the importance of a brand. Um, but all that said, I moved to LA, and by way of always trying to build her business with her, I kind of came into crowdfunding. So we did our own crowdfunding on Kickstarter, and let's see, and then around 2013, um, I was like, we just kind of went our separate ways. I would say, like, she had her business, because with me being here in LA, I was discovering there was more that I wanted to do for myself as well. And I started to learn about equities crowdfunding. So that's the Jobs Act for people in the US. And now this is pretty common. Like, you can go on WeFunder, Seed Invest, you can invest as an individual into, future, maybe the future Facebook. But back then it wasn't really possible. But that's what got me started in the real estate industry. So I joined one of the first real estate crowdfunding platforms. I was the CMO. And I didn't know anything about real estate other than it was a good investment, but I had no idea about it. So again, I don't know what I don't know. But I built the brand for the company, leading company, in some ways, really the whole industry, because it was just getting started. I mean, it was like, I remember going to conferences where there was like, 30 people. And now it's all part of fintech. And so again, like, starting over. And, for me, like, work has always been my identity.
Mhm.
Um, and I can fast forward to about end of 2017, where that identity completely dissolved.
Mhm.
So you could say I probably was burnt out, because I had gone nonstop for years, because I went from, trying to like jockey my way into like this really great financial career, getting to the hedge fund, like everything that went down there, jumping into being an entrepreneur with my sister. As being an entrepreneur is just like your whole life. It is, you don't rest, you don't sleep, you're always working. Jump into crowdfunding, create a company, define an industry. And then from there, I was like consulting and doing other things. And then it was over.
Wow.
It was over. And that was like the beginning of the end. And then I had to go through a whole journey to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
my next step.
Yeah. Wow. So before we go to the next life phase,
Yeah.
the journey that is going forward that you took, I would like to know. Yeah, you are actually a serial entrepreneur. I say that because you always founded one company, then the next one, and the next one in 2021. So, what is that urge? Why? What was so important for you to start your own business? Because it's not an easy journey. It's got a lot of challenges and hurdles to
Mhm.
overcome. And there's the positive things, wow, you made it. There's the winnings, but there is also the setbacks. So, how was the journey in general for you? So, if you look back, and what was your initial trigger to become an entrepreneur now that you know what an entrepreneur is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure what the initial trigger was. It's not like a linear thing that I thought about. It's a feeling.
Mhm.
Like, it was a really strong feeling of, coming out of a more corporate, even though the hedge fund was small and you could say entrepreneurial and in a way. Um, but it was still very corporate. It was still very linear, and it was still very boxed in, and I just needed freedom. And I discovered that I'm very visionary. And I used to not feel comfortable even saying that, because I would think, oh, someone's bragging if they say that. But it's actually like, I have an understanding of, let's say, the future, or what something could be. And so I love being on the edge of that.
Mhm.
And it fascinates me. Like, if I just pay attention to what I pay attention to, what I want to spend my time on, mostly that excites me, it's all the new innovation.
Yeah.
it's like anything that's new, it's anything that's like changing the world, because the world changes so fast, faster and faster. And it's interesting to me to see the progress and to see the evolution. And I think it's rooted in there, where I like to start things. I like to be the part of things in the beginning,
Mhm.
um, when nobody can tell you what to do, and you're making it up and you're figuring it out, as opposed to coming, like, I'm really good at like early stage, but later stage for me is not like, implementing systems, and that is not me. So that's been part of understanding who I am. And so I didn't know any of this when I started. I just had a really strong feeling that I wanted some freedom, and that was freedom from like a hierarchical type of a system, even though being an entrepreneur is way more stressful than this, but it's more enjoyable for me than this.
Mhm.
um so that would be really the impetus. Is I like to be where like the action is, like where the new industries are being birthed, where people are discovering things, because I'm not a scientist, but I am in that sense over here.
That's about entrepreneurship. When you have a vision, something you visualize, something that's where I want to go. That's the legacy, what I want to leave behind, and being inspired about the whole process. And yeah, creating something with other people. And yeah, and I think there is something that's it is something that continues your journey. On top of it, having this purpose, there is something more than just a bottom line making profits, right? There is
Mhm.
doing something, creating something, um, something that is valuable to other people.
Yeah.
So this aspect, I think, that's how I got to know you, is becoming more and more and more part and important to your own life, is it?
Yes, yes, and it's being part of something with other people.
Mm-hmm.
There's an energy when there's something new being created, when there's a new opportunity. Like, there's an energy there that gives me energy. And I found through my experiences, I'm not a solopreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what I want. I don't want to do things completely by myself. That's like, um, I like to be part of something with other people. So there's a community aspect to it, because it's more fun that way. And so that was also really important learning for me about, yes, I'm entrepreneurial and serial entrepreneur, but I don't always have to be the one. I don't have to do it alone, and I don't necessarily have to be the one to start it. I like being part of an early stage team as well, and coming in. And now, like so many years later, with my experience, I bring so much to the table, where I'm like the wiser older person in some ways, but I still get to be part of that really dynamic energy that's there.
Yeah, and I think that's why you started your own business, Women of Wealth, in 2021, right?
Yeah, yeah, Women of Wealth is, yeah, it's an organization. I mean, it's actually a nonprofit,
Mhm.
um, and it's really all about empowering women. And I still have, I'm a partner at the private equity firm, and that's like my primary work. And that's actually a really important thing that I learned too in the past few years um, is that having that stability for me was also really important, the financial stability, because when I tried to be a solopreneur after my burnout, and actually what contributed to even more burnout was that I tried to just go and do something on my own. And I wasn't successful, and that was really hard on my ego, and just like I didn't understand why I couldn't be successful. Like, this was why something's wrong, like I can't make it work. And it was because like the universe was just saying, you just need to chill out. You need to stop and collect yourself. And really, I had like an ego death, like an identity crisis, because if I'm not the successful executive, then who am I? And so I tried to be an entrepreneur that had to be successful at all costs, because I didn't know how to operate any other way. And that didn't work. And so then I had to come to terms with I'm not a good solopreneur, and that's fine. And but that was hard for me to admit to myself that that I didn't succeed or failed or however one wants to use the words. But I really that's when I realized like I like being part of a team of people. Like that's when I learned like I want to do things with others. And so that's how I joined Alpha. And then Women of Wealth kind of came very naturally. It took many years to incubate with my partner Jennifer, who's my co-founder. And we just kind of started it as like we wanted to have a space for women to have conversations about money and not like how to make more money. I mean, there's plenty of like courses and things where it's like here, make more money, work harder. I'm not interested in working harder in a way, like bluntly. I'm interested because my background, my career is in financial, investments. I know that my money can work hard for me. I don't have to work that hard. But most people, and especially most women, don't know that because we just think we have to work harder. That's not true. Our money can work for us. And I know, I mean, that's my industry. It's money works for you. And so we wanted to create a forum and a space for women to drop the shame around wanting money or because there's a lot of stigma there, and just to create a space and a community and conversations and even education through our life experiences and access and what I do and what she does and what other women in our first cohort of the mastermind do, to empower each other to set big goals and to hit big goals, because I know how to hit those big goals through investing, and not stock market investing, but the kind of investing that wealthy people do, wealthy men have done forever and ever and ever. And it's not special. They're not special. They don't know more than other people know. They just talk to each other more. And they create opportunities and access for each other more. That's not something women can't do. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's also, I think, a different mindset they have. And um, when it comes to what you are doing, this you are on one hand in this private equity realm and space, and I also got to know you very much as a reflective and sensitive and rather, let's say, more spiritual person. So, and we always think we have to make this decision either or, yeah. But what I see, what you do, you combine both so beautifully. Real estate, and on the other hand, there's more this enlightened leadership and women empowering women, women supporting women. So how do you bring that all under one umbrella?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because I think there's the formula behind somehow.
Yeah. I mean, that's really been the last couple of years of my journey. Is I was very separate in my mind and I was very separate because I thought, at first, like at first I thought I'm only a successful business person. There was nothing else.
Yeah.
And then that went away. And then I went on a very deep spiritual journey. To really, I mean, it's cliche, but I'll say it. It really was to find myself, like who I really am and what I want, like who I want to be. So like I said in the beginning, these expectations that we all live under, other people's expectations, other people's authority, other people's expertise, like, oh, something's wrong. Oh, someone else can give you the answer. The truth is that I have the answers. I have to be willing to know myself so deeply that I can understand when I even have a question, when there's something that's not going wrong. How am I the one creating that situation for myself? Whether it manifests externally or it just, it's just something that, like those voices that we have in our heads, like the inner critic, and becoming very, very aware of all of the different layers that make me who I am. And so that was a deep, deep journey of really like undoing that outer shell of ego and the executive and success and other people's expectations, and coming back and finding this other side of me, and really my spiritual nature. And so then for a while, I was only that.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And in a way, because I had to be. And it's my process also to do things deeply, like all the way through. So I don't just like, if I'm going to do something, I go in so deep. And so when I'm there, I'm completely consumed by it. And so in a way, like the hero's journey, I came out of that, and then I brought the two things together because I realized, and this is really important for anyone who's like maybe having a spiritual awakening, or they're very drawn to, especially in moments of stress, it's very easy to be drawn to something completely different, like, like conscious community or what have you. You can't be separate. If you can't bring your spiritual self, your knowing of yourself so deeply to what you do in the real world, then you're only living half a life. Because the reality is, we live in a world, in a society that functions in a certain way. Like money is part of our lives. You can't wish it away. You can't wish it were different. Systems exist. There's rules, man-made rules, math rules, whatever you want to call it. We have to play the game, and we have to play in order to change it to be the way we want it to be. So, knowing what I know about myself, I also just make different choices. I have different relationships with people. I also empower myself to do things with my resources. So I invest in things that I believe in. I invest in a way that gives me the life that I want, and I invest in a way that I feel I can help change the world to be the way that I want to. And that comes from this deep spiritual knowing of the impact that I can make. So I'm finding the tools to make the impact instead of thinking I can't be in business because I'm suddenly spiritually awake. In reality, I'm always spiritually awake. I'm just doing different things. So what am I going to choose to do? I love business. I love investing. I love finance. I love showing other women how to do the same so that they have their time back. They're doing what they want to do. They're making meaningful investments. And we're literally like that saying of vote with your money, so to speak. Like there's so much power there that women are not claiming. And by my claiming it and bringing those parts of myself together, I am the best possible version of myself as a whole entire person, rather than having separateness within myself and having those separate pieces kind of fighting for my own attention.
Yeah.
So it's that's been the journey.
Wow, that's so beautifully said. Unbelievable. That's takeaways for our audience. So I just want to recap. So it's really important to bring both together, the spiritual kind of awakening and the money part. So to be complete basically, and to invest in what we are believing in, and also
Mhm.
finding the tools to make that impact. Yeah, and then claiming the power that we have, owning our voice as being the whole person. And so on top of that, so that's a kind of a prerequisite, I suppose. Do you have any other best wealth management advice for women who start out with their businesses? Like three steps or three to-dos or three most important facts or points?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Okay, let me I'm going to think about this. So, if you're a business owner, you generally will be putting most of your money into your business, right? Like that's especially in the beginning. You're doing that. Parents put their money for their kids, etc. I think the number one thing is to make space in your business, in your finances, like to also treat your personal finances like a business, and to put money aside to invest for yourself. Um, it's really really important because they're separate things. And while the business can be, you might be able to exit that business later for a large sum, that's fine, that's great. but you still have to think about your personal financial situation, and treat it like a business. So make it a priority. So first, like, have a financial plan for yourself. And that also is like understanding what your goals are, and your needs, and really prioritizing that for yourself. Because the lack of financial stability is one of the greatest stressors that we face, in life, in relationships. So that's like probably the most important thing. And then from there, naturally the question is, well, I don't know anything about money. I don't know who to talk to. So I would say, like, when that comes up, because it's a lot and you're already a business owner, I'm busy. I don't want to also have to be my own financial advisor. And but it's worth it. So there's so many resources online. There's communities like Women of Wealth, but there's people out there, that there's investment groups. There's so many places. Find someone to talk to, and talk to them openly.
Mhm.
Ask questions. Like, especially as women, it's almost like we're not allowed to not know something, because we always have to we have to be like 5 6 times better, 5 6 times knowing more, just to feel like we are valuable. Exactly, like we're even. And that, most of that's in our heads too, by the way. It's not true. Like, it's maybe in some cases there's still some people that think that way, but I find like at least 50% of that's just in my head. And so that's a long way of saying, ask questions and ask for help. Really, really important. And then I would say the third is start to take the action on some of those investment goals. They're small things that you can do. And I find doing it in a community, and this is why we have Women of Wealth, is just the best way to do it. Like, even with some of my investors at Alpha, we have these conversations, and I love talking to them and hearing what else they're investing in, or what some of their goals are. Like, I always ask, like, what are your goals? And like, then I can understand whether what we offer fits for them. And it doesn't always, but I love having conversations with people and hearing like how they got to where they are, what they're doing, what else they might be doing, because I learn from them. And that's a big part of it too. So, but you have to take those steps. Like, I can't tell you how many women, in for Alpha on the investment side, they for them it's so much to think, well, I already have my job, like I have my kids, I'm already like, head of household, I'm doing all these things, and they're getting into investing, and it's overwhelming. To have another person to talk to you, and to feel safe with that person, to make the investment choice, and then they start making the investments, and they start to see the money come back. And then it starts to really hit. I mean, you see it in your bank account and you think, okay, it's working. And so you have to take the action to towards those goals. So it was prioritizing your personal finances, asking questions and finding people to talk to, and then taking action. Those are the three things that I would really recommend. And they're very powerful. They're very powerful, especially done in community.
Okay, thank you so much, AdaPia. Another question I would like to ask you, since you are a business owner, you are the face of the company, and are a thought leader in your space, in your ecosystem, in the women community, and thereby you are a strong personal brand and
Mm.
authentic personal brand. So, what does that mean to you? What is your take on personal branding, personal brand building, and being authentic as a personal brand?
Yeah, I mean, like the word you said, authentic, like that to me is like it's everything. And so to me, what that means is, and this I learned this through that spiritual journey of, I don't have to be someone different for someone else. Like,
Yeah.
how much time and energy and effort do we put in to creating a persona? So much work to you're always out here. There's like you're here, and then this thing that you're being is over here. It's so much work to hold up that persona, and it's not worth it, because then you're always needing to be that person for someone else, and it's just like the energy is just, it's exhausting. So if I can be myself, if I can trust myself, if I can love myself to be myself, then it's not as much work. It's so much easier, and it's more natural. So I can have more natural interactions and conversations. And that to me is the personal brand, is me being myself. And like all of myself. So, obviously, like, there's a professional side to me. There's also like a deeply spiritual side to me, and a personal side to me, and a witty side to me. And so it's just my ability to know how to interact with other people. And it comes naturally after a while too. So it's like, it starts with being comfortable with myself. And that's what I learned in that ego death, in that burnout, in the spiritual awakening, was basically, I don't have to be someone else. I can just be me. And that has been, without thinking of it as a brand, without, because other people will tell me who they think I am a lot of times. And that's really, like, it's interesting. And most of the time they say I'm authentic, and I'm, and I appreciate that. And so it's just like, that to me is it. Like, and I want you to be yourself. I want to have conversations and relationships with a real person,
Yeah.
not the person's persona that they think they need to put up for me or someone else. And this is often one of the things that I have a real trouble with in our world, of the way that personal brands or thought leadership is marketed. It can be very flashy. It can be very showy. I know in these TikTok times, like, you did, like, people are acting a lot, and that's fine. I mean, if you have a good time with it and that's like part of your personality, but it can also create separation within the self.
Mm.
And so I have trouble sometimes with overly, like, forced um marketing, let's say, and I personally don't respect it. But if I meet that person, I might meet that person in person, and they're completely different from the way they show up. That Which is fine, but that to me is a problem, because what example are you giving to the people you're trying to talk to? Are you really helping them? I have a real issue with these influencers, because you're almost like, people will it's like people give away their agency. They give away their own authority, because they think, oh, the influencer knows more. They might. It's true that they might, but you still have to do some work to understand. And, like, I mean, the influencer has done the work to get to where they are. But if you like that influencer, that's fine, but they don't necessarily know more than you if you spend some time learning it too. Does that make sense? Like, it's just like, I have a real issue with it, because I think it's leading a lot of people away
Mhm.
from their own personal power.
So I think what you mean is the influencer is more the means to an end. It helps to communicate the message, but the message should be born by the person or by the company who stands for whatever or lives by their values when they create and communicate then
Yeah,
a certain
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a means to an end. You said it so much better. It's all marketing, and it's all producing, and a lot of it is acting, and it's very, very dynamic. People are very dynamic, and it's like, it's almost entertainment. And maybe if people understood it to be entertainment in a way, then it would help them be able to make their own decisions. Because what I see is people are just constantly outsourcing their power and their decision making to other people, that maybe they have a big audience, maybe they know more, but maybe they don't know what you need. You do.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important that you work on who you are, who I am, who am I, what do I want, what are my values, truly my values. So that when you interact with an influencer or a thought leader, know that they're a business person. They have a business. They have they're their own means to their own end too. And so it's like understanding what their priorities are and what their goals are. And that's really important in that personal brand influencer relationship. Because the other thing that I learned is that I have so much more influence in a very small circle. I
Mhm.
have more influence, I have more impact than if I had a million followers, so to speak. I'm not interested in that. We all have so much influence in our own lives and just the people that are part and parcel of our everyday lives. And if we focus a little bit more on that, we have the ability to make a huge impact and a huge change in people's lives, just by recognizing that who is already in our lives is enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the so-called niching. Yeah, we are focusing on a specific target audience, or we feel comfortable in a specific group of people that resonates with us, and we can
Mm.
on a on an emotional, on a visceral level. And
Yeah.
that is something that it's like a glue that connects us. It's the
Mhm.
emotions that we try to leverage here, and also where we can be true to ourselves when we communicate on that level.
Yeah, and I mean, and you do this, right? Like when you're working with professionals like women, or like for your personal brand, having a personal brand isn't just so that you can be an influencer. I went off on this whole tangent about influencers, but I think that's where people get really mixed up, is that they think that the personal brand has to be for because I need a business out of it. I need it to be an influencer or a thought leader. No, you doing your job, like being who you are, like knowing yourself, like how you show up at work, like the impact that you make just in your team, right? Like you are a personal brand that way. And it doesn't have to be a built out brand. It simply has to be comfort in exactly who you are. And everyone can work on like communication skills. Like there's always things that we can work on, but who I am reflects in how I show up and the relationships that I have. And so from that perspective, the personal brand for professionals, for executives, like it's really important. And it all so you do this, and it's like not just like, oh, I need to be an influencer, I only need a personal brand so I can be an influencer. No, you need that so that you know how to communicate, because this is what we don't always know, is like, okay, I know who I am, but communicating that in the actions and the understanding and having that awareness, like that's the real key to the success that I think most people want. Is just in the really in like the everyday, especially for, I would say, middle, like executive women at that level where there's that bottleneck, where
Mhm.
there's a lot of women in like middle management VP roles. There's this bottleneck and it always seems to go to the men. And so there's something there that needs to be worked on, that's a little more strategic. But
Exactly.
I would say it this way, you still got to show up as who you are, because that's what got you there in the first place, not not being an influencer.
Exactly. Yeah, you brought it to the. Thank you so much, Adapia. There is one more question I would like to ask you. You talked about burnout. You talked about certain parts in your life that were um, maybe also eye-opening and were significant to you to really live through that, to get an understanding about who you are and where
Mhm.
you go, where you want to be, what legacy you want to be, you want to leave behind. Would you like to talk about one specific setback or detour um, to give us an idea of what really matters to you and what you learned from that?
Oh, wow. There were so many.
What?
There are so many setbacks. Um, I mean, I think like When I tried to do to like have a solopreneur business, like, and that didn't work. So I was trying to be a coach and a kind of like a leadership coach. That did not work. And and so that was a real setback for me, because I also wasn't earning any money, and that was really hard for me. And I learned for myself, and some people can be really comfortable with, not earning all the time, or what have you. Um, I'm not that person. So I actually really learned in that moment. And it's funny to me that, well, I guess not. I wouldn't have known. I wasn't this self-aware back then. But like, you would think that I would know that financial stability is really important to me, but I didn't know that, because I've always just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And I always thought, if I just work a little harder, then I'll succeed and I can make my money again. And I was working so hard, and I was so excited. I was like following my passion, all that good stuff. And it wasn't working. And I was like, that something's wrong with me. And so what I learned was that the financial stability was really important for me, and that is actually one of my values, is that financial like stability is valuable to me. I value that. And so I had to make that a priority so that I could feel safe and comfortable and do what I needed to do. That was really eye-opening to me, because I had these kind of weird ideas that if you follow your passion, the money will follow. That is not true. It wasn't for me, at least not that passion. And now I have a different way of kind of doing leadership work, or like helping. It's not coaching. I'm a terrible coach. I don't want to be a coach. But I can do a lot with the intention that I had with all of that, which was to build community, and especially to work with women to empower them. But I now I do it differently. I do it with women of wealth, and I do it with the money thing. And that all comes back to that moment when I realized, oh my God, like if I don't have steady income, I can't even like turn on the creative brain. Like all I do is worry. So it's this whole cyclical thing that brought me around to that was the moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We learn so much from our setbacks, from our detours, and there's always something in it we look at, and then it's so eye-opening, and we take that and yeah, level up to the next, and then yeah, integrate that in our lives going forward. Fine. AdaPia, one last thing, a quick word wrap. I would
All
like to
right.
ask you one term, and then maybe a sentence or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
When it comes to women, what
Empowerment.
empowerment, enlightening leadership. Could you explain that?
In one word?
One word or two sentences or something. Because actually, I wanted to talk about it, but we never really made it to that point to really define what is enlightening leadership.
Mm. Um, so to me, enlightened leadership means being true to yourself and leading from your heart. Um, that is enlightened leadership. Enlightened is not that that it's like enlightened isn't I know everything, I'm God. Like that's not it. Enlightened is I know myself and I lead from that place.
Beautiful. Good. Wealth.
Freedom and abundance in time, resources, and relationships.
And brands.
Brands?
Mhm.
Um, oh man, I don't know. That's a big one. Brands is a really big one. It's like an expression of values.
Beautiful. Cool. Yeah. AdaPia, thank you so much. Also, where can listeners find you?
Yeah, well, thank you. This was a lot of fun. And honestly, the best place for people to find me is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That is sort of my hub. So you can find me on LinkedIn, AdaPia, ADAPIA. I'm pretty easy to find. And people can connect with me there. They can go to, they can look up Women of Wealth. That's women with an X, because we're really inclusive of every woman or anyone who defines themselves that way. And yeah, that would be the best place to find me.
Okay, I'll put everything into the show notes. Adapia, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was a pleasure. It was a delight having you and learn from you about women empowerment, and in particular about wealth creation and doing that simultaneously while living a meaningful and impactful driven life. Thank you so much, Adapia.
Well, thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. So, thank you all for joining BrandsTalk today. Please give it your social love and leave your comments below. Did you know you can also listen to this show as a podcast on your go? Just follow BrandsTalk on your favorite platform. And if you're interested in learning more about my services, head over to my website, BridgetBrands.com. I hope you will join me again when we dive into the world of brands, live or by having me in your earbuds, walking the talk. Bye for now. Let's shine. You deserve it.